Hello and most welcome to lecture 1312 or 1312, or if you like it in the American way, 1312th episode. Today I will talk about observer-ectomy. It's close to lobotomy. It is taking away of the observer, a tendency that grows stronger within the area of knowledge, especially the last half century or century in all. The effects of that being different: mind wandering, lack of memory capabilities, inability to keep a thinking line, and subjectified emotional verbiage instead of knowing on a deep level, the superficiality of understanding that is no longer a satisfying, fulfilling, deepening knowledge that is helpful for one's own life and that of the others' lives. It is the absolute destruction of the historical heritage that we've been using for millennia that is now coming to its end. This is what observer-ectomy is. And one example of this is that we get emotional. So this lecture today will focus on emotional, how we get stuck in an emotional way of understanding the world that constantly changes by the wind, by the mood, by the time, by each and every second, and has an eroding effect on knowledge. This is similar to polarism. We've been talking earlier about now fixation, which cuts out time into two parts that should be ignored according to observer-ectomy. One is the future and the other one is the past, thereby making time very, very narrow. And one lecture I call this the picosecond fixation, that the now is the only one that counts, or the picosecond now, and thereby we lose all connection to time, something that is also made stronger in observer-ectomy by time being an illusion, a view held by the absolute majority of all educators today. Time is completely unreal. If time is unreal, also space and objects will become unreal. And this, I would say, is what these things are saying. Lack of keeping our mind's eye on something, mind wandering, is the way of escaping everything real. Knowledge is about reality. Observer-ectomy is about going away from reality, from knowledge, almost intentionally, but it lacks intention, observer-ectomy. It's a passive tendency. Pacifies us, it makes us into victims of ongoing trends, either in ourselves or, I would also say, outside of ourselves. If we are emotionally fixated, any vogue or general mood in the society or the community will also change your mood. In Swedish, we call that vindflöjel. I don't know the word in English, but it is a thing usually on top of roofs that change direction according to whether there's a western wind or a northeast or southeast wind. This will be happening inwardly and outwardly if we make everything dependent on the emotional state. Another way of thinking of that is by ignoring the observer. We get no control what the observer has in it, within it, and therefore we become passive victims to our own feeling and thinking. They become the rulers in our mind, and higher capacities become something impossible, and human beings are therefore just brains. And oddly enough, this is a tendency that in the last years are beginning to change within the holiest of holiest, that is within the science of cognition itself. Now, these type of titles are coming up, where mind is put into focus and the brain is being subservient. But I would say this book is not alone, and there is a lot of articles on the net. It is changing now. It is changing quickly, but so far only within the science of cognition. I would say in all other areas of knowledge, the observerectomy is continuing to enforce its power and becoming stronger and stronger. Only in science is it not becoming stronger. And I think that is sort of proven what the observerectomy tries to do: ignore all sorts of knowing. So I will get into the lecture about how emotions are not a good way of living one's life, why they can be unfaithful companions. This is similar to following one's intuition, or how it feels, or doing those things that comes into your mind. Might be that the intuition once upon a time was healthy, but I would say today, when we don't even know how to use our own bodies, I think that sort of changed. So I will read an article written by Mark Manson, titled "Why You Shouldn't Trust Your Emotions." Look, I know you think the fact that you feel upset or angry or anxious important, that it matters. Hell, you probably think that because you feel like your face just got shat on makes you important. But it doesn't. Feelings are just these things that happen. The meaning we build around them, what we decide is important or unimportant comes later. There are only two reasons to do anything in life. A, because it feels good, or B, because it's something you believe to be good or right. Sometimes these two reasons align. Something feels good and is the right thing to do, and that is just effing fantastic. Let's throw a party and eat a cake. But more often, these two things do not align. Something feels bad, but is right, good. For instance, getting up at 5 a.m. and going to the gym, hanging out with Grandma Joni for an afternoon and making sure she's still breathing. Or something feels fantastic but is bad, wrong thing to do. And that would be pretty much anything involving your libido or temptations. Acting based on your feelings is easy. You feel it, then you do it. It is like scratching an itch. There is a sense of relief and cessation that comes along with it. It is a quick satisfaction. But then that satisfaction is gone just as quickly as it came. Acting based on what's good, right, is difficult. For one, knowing what is good, right, is not always clear. You often have to sit down and think hard about it. Often we have to feel ambivalent about our conclusions or fight through our lower impulses. But when we do what's good and right, the positive effects last much longer. We feel pride remembering it years later. We tell our friends and family about it and give ourselves cute little awards and put things on our office walls and say, hey, I did that. When our co-workers come in and ask why we have a trophy, with a goat catching a frisbee on your bookshelf, the point is, doing what is good, right, builds self-esteem and adds meaning to our lives. Your tricky brain so we should just ignore our feelings and just do what is good, right, all the time then. Is it so? It's simple. Well, like many things in life, it is simple, but that does not necessarily mean it's easy. The problem is that the brain does not like to feel conflicted about its decision making. It does not like uncertainty and ambiguity, and will do mental acrobatics to avoid any discomfort. And our brain's favorite way to do this is always try to convince itself that whatever feels good is the same as what is good or right. So you know you shouldn't eat that ice cream. But your brain says, hey, you had a hard day. A little bit won't kill you. And you are like, hey, you are right. Thanks, brain. What feels good suddenly feels right. And then you shamelessly inhale a pint of Cherry Garcia. You know you shouldn't cheat on your exam, but your brain says you're working 2 jobs to put yourself through college. Unlike these spoiled brats in your class. You deserve a little boost from time to time, and so you sneak a peek at your classmate's answer, and voila. What feels good is also what feels right. You know you should vote, but you tell yourself that the system is corrupt, and besides, your vote will not matter anyway. And so you stay home and play with your new drone. that's probably illegal to fly in your neighborhood. But who cares? This is America. And the whole point is to get fat doing whatever you want. That's like the Sixth Amendment or something. If you do this sort of thing long enough, if you convince yourself that what feels good is the same as what is good, then your brain will actually start to mix the two up. Your brain will start thinking the whole point of life is just to feel really awesome as often as possible. And once this happens, you'll start deluding yourself into believing that your feelings actually matter. And once that happens, well, if this is rubbing you the wrong way right now, just think about it for a second. Everything that is screwed up in your life chances are it got that way because you were too beholden to your feelings. You were too impulsive or too self-righteous and thought yourself the center of the universe. Feelings have a way of doing that, you know. They make you think you're the center of the universe. And I hate to be the one to tell you, you are not. A lot of young people hate hearing this because they grew up with parents who worship their feelings as children, protected those feelings, and tried to buy as many candy corns and swimming lessons as necessary to make sure those feelings were nice and fuzzy and protected at all times. Sadly, these parents probably did this because they were also beholden to their own feelings. because they were unable to tolerate the pain of watching a child struggle, even if just for a moment. They did not realize that children need some controlled measure of adversity to develop cognitively and emotionally. That experiencing failure is actually what sets us up for success. And that demanding to feel good all the time is pretty much a first-class ticket to having no friends once you hit adulthood. This is the problem with organizing your life around feelings. Your feelings are self-contained. They are wholly and solely experienced only by you. Your feelings cannot tell you what's best for your mother or your career or your neighbor's dog. They cannot tell you what is best for the environment or what's best for the next Parliament of Lithuania. All they can do is tell you what's best for you. And even that is debatable. Your feelings are temporary. They only exist in the moment they arise. Your feelings cannot tell you what will be good for you in a week, or a year, or 20 years. They cannot tell you what was best for you when you were a kid, or what you should have studied in school. All they can do is tell you what is best for you now. And even that is debatable. Your feelings are inaccurate. Ever been talking to a friend and thought you heard them say this horrible, mean thing and start to get upset, and then it turned out your friend did not say that horrible, mean thing at all. you just heard it wrong. Or ever got really jealous or upset with somebody close to you for a completely imagined reason. Like their phone dies and you start thinking they hate you and never liked you and were just using you for your Boy George tickets. Or ever being really excited to pursue something you thought was going to make you into a big bad ass, but then later realized that it was all just an ego trip, and you made a lot of people angry you cared about along the way. Feelings kind of suck at the whole truth thing, and that is a problem. Why it's hard to get over your own feelings. Now, none of what I'm saying is really that surprising or new. In fact, you probably try to get over some of your own obnoxious feelings and impulses before and fail to do it. The problem is when you start trying to control your own emotions. The emotions multiply. It is like trying to exterminate rabbits. The bastards just keep popping up all over the place. Be very, very quiet. I am trying to get rid of my darn feelings. This is because we do not just have feelings about our experiences. We also have feelings about our feelings. I call these meta feelings, and they pretty much ruin everything. There are 4 types of meta feelings. 1, feeling bad about feeling bad, which is self-loathing. Feeling bad about feeling good, guilt. Feeling good about feeling bad, self-righteousness. Feeling good about feeling good, ego or narcissism. Here, let me put those into a pretty little table for you to stare at. Meet your meta feelings. Feeling bad about feeling bad, self-loathing. Could be 1 of 4, anxious, neurotic behavior. 2. Suppression of emotions. 3. Engage in a lot of fake niceness, politeness. Feeling as though something is wrong with you. Feeling bad about feeling good. Guilt. Chronic guilt and feeling as though you do not deserve happiness. Constant comparison of yourself to others. Feeling as though something should be wrong, even if everything is great. Unnecessary criticism and negativity. Feeling good about feeling bad. Self-righteousness. Moral indignation. Condensation or condescension towards others. Feeling as though you deserve something others do not. Seeking out a constant sense of powerlessness and victimization. And the 4th, feeling good about feeling good. It will be 5 things. Self-congratulatory. 2. Chronically overestimate yourself. A delusionally positive self-perception. Unable to handle failure or rejection. Avoids confrontation or discomfort. Constant state of self-absorption. Meta-feelings are part of the stories we tell ourselves about our feelings. They make us feel justified in our jealousy. They applaud us for our pride. They show our faces in our own pain. They are basically the sense on what is justified, not justified. They are our own acceptance of how we should respond emotionally and how we should not. But emotions do not respond to shoulds. Emotions suck. Remember. So instead, these meta-feelings have the tendency to rip us apart inside even further. If you always feel good about feeling good, you'll become self-absorbed and feel entitled to those around you. If feeling good makes you feel bad about yourself, then you'll become this walking, taking pile of guilt and shame, feeling as though you deserve nothing, having earned nothing, and have nothing of value to offer to the people or the world around you. And then there are those who feel bad about feeling bad. These positive thinkers will live in fear that any amount of suffering indicates that something must be sorely wrong with them. This is the feedback loop from hell that many of us are thrust into by our culture, our family, and the self-help industry at large. But perhaps the worst meta-feeling is increasingly the most common. Feeling good about feeling bad. People who feel good about feeling bad get to enjoy a certain righteous indignation. They feel morally superior in their suffering, that they are somehow martyrs in a cruel world. These self-aggrandizing victimhood trend followers are the ones who want to spit on someone's life on the internet, who want to march and through bad things as at politicians or businessmen or celebrities, who are merely doing their best in a hard, complex world. Much of the social strife that we're experiencing today is the result of these meta-feelings. Moralizing mobs on both the political right and left see themselves as victimized and somehow special in every minuscule pain or setback they experience. Greed skyrockets while the rich congratulate themselves on being rich in tandem with the increasing rates of anxiety and depression as the lower and middle classes hate themselves for feeling left behind. These narratives are spun not only by ourselves, but fed by the narratives invented in the media. Right-wing talk show hosts stoke the flames of self-righteousness, creating an addiction to irrational fears, that people's society is crumbling around them. Political memes on the left create the same self-righteousness, but instead of appealing to fear, they appeal to intellect and arrogance. Consumer culture pushes you to make decisions based on feeling great. And then congratulates you for those decisions, while our religions tell us to feel bad about how bad we feel. Control meaning, not emotions. To unspin these stories, we must come back to a simple truth. Feelings do not necessarily mean anything. They merely mean whatever you allow them to mean. Maybe I'm sad today. Maybe there are 8 different reasons I can be sad today. Maybe some of them are important and some of them are not. But I get to decide how important those reasons are. Whether those reasons state something about my character, or whether it is just one of those sad days. This is the skill that is perilously missing today. The ability to decouple meaning from feeling, to decide that just because you feel something, it doesn't mean life is that something. This skill is so crucial to living an emotionally healthy life that I dedicate a lot of my writing career to it. It doesn't mean you should ignore your feelings. Feelings are important, but they're important not for the reasons we think they are. We think they're important because they say something about us, about the world, about our relationship with it. But they say none of these things. There's no meaning attached to feelings. Sometimes you hurt for a good reason, but sometimes for a bad reason, and sometimes no reason at all. The hurt itself is neutral. The reason is separate. The point is that you get to decide. And many of us have either forgotten or never realized that fact. But we decide what our pain means, just as we decide what our successes expose. And that is from Mark Manson. Let me just expand that a bit, if I might. He has come to the same conclusions as scientifically proven and written quite extensively by Lisa Friedman Bartet, and of course the findings of Smithson, that feelings are plannings in the short. They are models of acting with a certain result. And we should use feelings, but we should be avoiding to getting too involved in them. No longer ruling feelings, but letting feelings rule us. Then we become this thing moving by the wind. A second thing is what I remember many years ago when I was in China, and they were shocked that they just let the students today in a very modern academic environment read whatever they wanted without looking at the state of the observer. Whereas in China, the polarity of the observer is just as important as what's getting observed. In modern New Age academia, we only think about the object pole. And if we ignore the subject or the observer, we make knowledge subjective and 100% emotional. Reading a text without knowing where we are in time, in history, and who we are will make everything random. And this is what we know today from science, the randomization of knowledge. You can never ever just read a book or give a book to someone and think they will be reading it in the same way, and trying to fix deviances by monosemism or other weird tools. It will always be different. It is proven by science itself. It is actually the core of quantum mechanics. It is ludicrous to think you can reach a book directly. And the Chinese were incredibly shocked that the holy literature of the Western world was treated also in this very modern way. Let anyone read it and decide rules of meaning and monosemism to decide the meaning of the most holy literature. That would never ever happen in the East. It would be the worst sin of all. We grew knowledge in history, and if we defy it, as we do in the cosmological fallacy, to say that there are persistent rules that do not follow time, that are above or beyond them somewhere, in some other world, well, isn't it so that all of these things are what we are doing, trying to sort of shut away reality, shut away the inside by not remembering what we're feeling or sensing or have experienced, and simultaneously losing the outside. Because as shown by quantum mechanics, we are losing both physics and the inside at the same time. It is not just one factor. We're not just losing out on the inside. The outside is lost to the same level. They go hand in hand. It's ludicrous to think you can have an objective reality only, but you cannot have a subjective either only. You will lose both. So you will not even be emotional. Like most people today actually complain. A big research that Ian McGilchrist put in his new grand book, The Matter with Things, is that most people today not only feel alienated against the outside, they feel unreal. They also feel 100% emotionally unreal. So it's both sides at the same end. So at the same time, maybe within religion we get this private religion. I have friends who are engaged in that. I actually have a female friend who invented her own religion. And she makes up things as she goes along, of course. But she also has books. And relying on herself to read those books without historicity, I would say that's blasphemous. It's a horrible sin. And unbeknownst to herself, she doesn't know about the observer. She has condemned herself into a way of subjectivity and evilness. Yes, there is a moral aspect to this. And I 100% support Ian McGilchrist when he says the mood or Stimmung, or as he says it, attitude of classical physics is above all a moral stance. It means you simply do not care. And I would say not caring is the sin that is committed by modern times. I say thank you very much and have a very pleasant afternoon. Bye-bye.